Well, despite promises to the contrary, here's another quick ride video. This time around it's a proper sightseeing jaunt as I'm going to ride around the Northumberland coast, have a look at a castle and then head off for some chips. Now, as there's the promise of chips and I'm buying, I've managed to entice a guest pillion this time around, and it's none other than Annika Rice. So that's Annika's chopper just flying above us, and she'll be landing around the corner once I've negotiated this level crossing. So I've just left the mighty A1 behind me and I've taken the well-trodden Northumberland coastal route. The railway line is the main East Coast route, and to be honest, I'm quite surprised that the gates are closed. I mean, with the wrong kind of leaves, rain, strikes and everything else that's been going on, the line has been pretty quiet recently. Now, while we're waiting, the cottage on the left is quite nice. A few years ago it was owned by someone who used to flog awful concrete garden ornaments, like huge gorillas and Buddhas and stuff. Anyway, that's all gone now. And to be honest, I've always fancied living there actually. I could see myself wandering around with a flickering lantern and waving at passing freight trains in the middle of the night, like some character out of an M.R. James novel. Anyway, here we go. So the coast is directly in front of us, and at the upcoming junction I'm going to swing a right and head towards Bamburgh and Seahouses, while on the way we'll also pass through a place called Warren Mill. It's a nice road this, but it's really all about the coastline, which is on the left hand side. Now, the first place we'll pass through is called Warren Mill, which is situated on Budle Bay, and part of Budle Bay is tidal mudflats, so it's a great place for bird watchers and anybody else with Gore-Tex and binoculars. Now, further out in the bay there's a glorious crescent-shaped spit of almost pure white sand, which is just beautiful. And overlooking the bay there is a campsite and a few holiday cottages and stuff. It's a cracking spot, and the morning sunrises are incredible. And as we pass the tidal bit of mudflats on the left, you can see a few doggers and twitchers just getting set up. Oh no! I've just realised I've forgotten to pick up the lovely Annika Rice. Oh, I feel terrible now. Anyway, I suppose that means I can afford some mushy peas now and I don't have to worry about how much brown sauce I put on the chips. Now, the campsite I mentioned earlier is just coming up on the left. Now, as we whiz up this incline and then down the other side, we'll get our first distant view of the village of Bamburgh and its mighty castle. It really is quite an incredible sight, especially from the coast, which we're going to see soon. Now, originally on this site there was a fort dating back to 547, which was destroyed by the Vikings, and then the Normans, it's always the Normans, isn't it? Then the Normans built a new castle around 993. That building still forms the core of the castle, which you can see today, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. And as you can see, the village is rather lovely, and what we're going to do first is take a little detour up on the left, and then we'll get a nice view of the castle from the coast. So the castle has been used in loads of films, most recently the rather awful Indiana Jones movie, but also the Netflix series The Last Kingdom, where the castle is known as Bamburgh. It is well worth a visit. There's lots to see, and if you have a dog, they even provide a dog sitting service, so you can wander around the interior of the castle without the fear of your pooch cocking a leg on something expensive. So there's the castle and the beach in front of us, and if you get up early in the morning you can get some great long exposure photos of the castle while the tide was in, and here's a couple of examples I prepared earlier. As you can imagine, the sea is absolutely freezing, but the beach is pretty stupendous and it goes on for miles and miles. At the moment there's some scaffolding up on the castle, so presumably the Normans are back to redo the pointing. Right, enough of that. Let's go back the way we came, and I'll slow down as we go through the village so we can get a proper look at the castle on the way past. Also worth a visit in Bamburgh is the Grace Darling Museum. So Grace Darling was the famous Victorian heroine who helped save many lives during a shipwreck on the Farne Islands, and she came from and is buried in Bamburgh. Either way, Bamburgh is a great place to stop. It's got some nice cafes and seafood restaurants, and you may even be able to see a game of croquet on a warm summer evening. So we're now leaving Bamburgh and heading towards Seahouses on the B1342. Now this road can get quite busy, and while it's not that interesting or challenging from a riding perspective, if you stop anywhere on the left and make your way through the sand dunes, you'll see the most amazing beaches with the Farne Islands in the distance. I do love a good sand dune. You know, they always kind of remind me of those family holidays as a kid, you know, when your mum would make you change behind a towel and tell you to go for a paddle. You know, even though it was like 6 degrees in Rill and you'd come back shivering with blue legs and a jellyfish and a bucket to show your dad. So the cutaway there shows the Inner Farne Island and Lighthouse. In total, I think there are around 20 islands, and in the past they were home to various saints and monks, and of course loads of puffins, seals and pods of dolphins. So I think Henry VIII put a stop to the island monk action during the dissolution of the monasteries, which is a shame in some ways, you know, because a monastic hermit on a rock would be a good tourist attraction. Unfortunately, due to the avian flu outbreak, visitors can't land on the islands at the moment. However, the risk does seem to be diminishing and the hope is landings can resume at some point in the future. Okay, so we're now coming up to Seahouses. Now the thing about Seahouses is that it's not particularly quaint or picturesque, but it is the quintessential northern seaside village, and it also has a small working harbour. It's a great point to explore the coastline and beaches, and from here you can get boats out to the Farne Islands, you can have a cracking game of crazy golf, visit the seaside tat shop, buy a crab line for the kids, and of course fill your face with high quality carbohydrates. So what I'm going to do is just quickly whiz through the town centre, and then I'm going to turn round and ride by my favourite chippy. Now Seahouses has lots of chip shops, but my personal favourite is Lewis's, and it's just coming up on the left hand side of the road. It's got a large restaurant and is also a takeaway. And let's face it, there's nothing better than taking your latest squeeze for sit down fish and chips and a can of pop, followed by a game of air hockey in the amusement arcade. That is my number one tip for a bit of romance. So the traditional place for bikes to park up is just outside the public conveniences. Here we go, done and dusted. Right, I'm off for some chips now. Hope you enjoyed that. And Annika, I'm really sorry. Maybe another time. Bye.